Today's guest is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, speaker, and brand builder who believes that work-life harmony is the key to evaluating or elevating your life. She's also the founder of Elevation Tribe, a platform that helps women launch, grow, and lead companies. Welcome to the show, Tina. How are you doing?
Hi, Toby. Thank you
Hi.
for having me.
I'm so excited to be speaking with you. It has been months leading up to this moment. And I'm
I'm thrilled too. I am absolutely thrilled to be chatting with you and talking about what I love. So this is great.
Yes. Yes, it's so awesome. I'm so happy about this. I would just love you to, to share your story. Like I was reading through your website and I found out that you accidentally became an entrepreneur at the age of 16, and that it was the beginning of your story basically. So would you like to share this story with us?
Sure. So, when I was 15 years old, I thought my dream in life was to be a fashion editor. And I read an ad in the back of 17 magazine. There was a newspaper that was looking for writers, a newspaper for girls. I applied and got hired as a product review editor. And I didn't really know what that meant. Then I realized, oh, I get to try products and tell people what I think. I would send those reviews back to companies I'd written about, and inevitably they'd ask me the same question every time. If I send you more stuff, will you tell me what you think? And, as a suburban teenager in mid 1990s with 5 younger siblings at home, it was probably the best thing that ever could happen that someone wanted to give me free product. A couple of years later, I realized that people were willing to pay me for my insights, and
Wow.
that started me down a path of market research. And the rest is really history. I spent almost 25 years running Buzz Marketing Group, my first company that was focused on market research, understanding millennials and emerging generations. And then I pivoted into content creation full time. And so now I run a company called Relevant Media. And, we have a focus on inclusivity and creating content and what I like to call contextual commerce, which is really focused on storytelling through product and how I bring all the things I love from marketing into actually developing and co-creating product with and for retailers. And it's just been an exciting 3 years. And I love what I get to do. I currently have several book lines, middle grade fiction books sold in partnership at Target, and now expanding to other retailers and working on some other really awesome product right now. But as you said in the introduction, during my career, I realized that I was going through seasons of burnout quite frequently, and I was good at coming up with ideas and vetting them, but not so great at taking care of myself. And so, I'm really also focused on the elevation approach, which is, work-life harmony and helping other people create that. And so I'm glad we're going to get to talk about that today.
Yes. I would love us to even jump right into it, because I was reading through your story and I found out that at a point in your life, like you said already, you are living the dream, you are growing a 7-figure business, but you were on a train you were on a train, or an express train, to burn out, like I read on your website. And I was like, wow, how can you, be living your dream, having that good life, earning that huge amount of money, having a successful business, and you're on the express train that's leading directly into burnout. So can you share this experience with people out there, with myself also? And can you explain this, elevation approach and the working system that you are able to create in order to prevent burnout?
Yeah. I remember starting at 16. By the time I was 27 years old, that was 11 years in business, so 11, and the majority of that time spent in school. I was valedictorian in high school, graduated college with honors, played varsity field hockey in college. So it was not that I was just in college focusing on business. I was doing a lot of other things. And so it just kind of been ingrained in me that I had to do it all. And I remember when my friends were like, we're going to go on vacation and your laptop's not invited. I was like, what? I remember the first time I said, I'm not going to bring my laptop. And then it died. Like I was actually not on my laptop for so many days that it just died. Like the battery was dead because I hadn't even tried to charge it. And it felt so liberating. And I remember, it's so embarrassing to say, like, I remember the first time I laid by the pool. And again, like, yes, did I do these things as kids? Like kids, you're in the water, you're doing that. Yeah. But I mean, in my adult life, the first time I actually was like laying by the pool, I was like, so what do we do? Do we just like lay here? And my friends are like, listen to music and read magazines and do all. I was like, oh, okay. And then I came back and I was so rejuvenated. And I said, I need to take a vacation every year, right? It still hadn't clicked that like the way I was working, vacationing once a year or taking time once a year wasn't going to be enough. And then 28 was, I started working out more frequently. Like it was like I couldn't skate by anymore. And that felt really good for me physically. I'm like, oh, it wasn't the workout. I didn't even care about the results of the workout. I cared about how emotionally it was making me feel. Like I left a workout and I was like, I just feel less stressed, right? So I wasn't even starting to make the connections that I put together in my late 30s, when I was in like full on, I need to change my life mode. But there are pieces of the story along the way. So I pick up tools. And I remember once I was like in Utah having body work done. And this really amazing, he was like beyond a massage therapist. He says to me, Tina, working out, like you need to find, your body is so used to the working out now, you need to find another way to de-stress. So that he saw that that was my go-to for de-stressing. It wasn't even working. And now, you know, living the elevation approach, which you asked, what is it? There are 4 phases: preparation, inspiration, recreation, and transformation. So in preparation, we all know that phase, right? We have a big idea. We're vetting it. That's the vetting process. Inspiration is when you go out and you start to ask other people, I have this idea and I think it's going to work. What do you think about it? Right. So you're being more visible. The step that was always missing in my life was recreation, taking a step back. And that is by far the most important step I take in every creative thing I do these days. Right. So whether it's creating the product, that moment where I am not engaged in the act of creating the product, the moment where I'm looking at, did I actually hire the right people to execute? Am I looking at this the right way? Am I just giving myself a moment to get inspired for a new middle grade fiction character? That had been missing in my life for so long. And then transformation, where you put it all together, it allowed me to go back to the things I was creating and make them even better because I'd taken a moment, just a moment, you know, and sometimes we only get a moment. I'm not suggesting to your audience that you just go take 3 months off and see what happens. Sometimes we get 15 minutes. You know, I practice every day, 10-minute visualization every single morning, 10 to 15 minutes of what do I want my day to look like, feel like, be like, what is a vision of what I want to bring into reality? Maybe that's all I get. You know, I've had a crazy month, right? And I have a crazy month ahead where I am traveling, I'm doing other things, but I know come April, which is my birthday month, my month with my family, like my whole family is taking a very big trip. I'm really building up to, I'm going to work so hard the next 4 weeks, and then I'm going to have a reprieve. Right. And so this approach just became how I live life. And it's second nature now, but I don't want the audience to think like, oh, it just took me no time to get there. It took many, many years of, you know, hair falling out, like all kinds of things happening that were just a bad response to stress that I was feeling.
Yes. So it's very important for us to take that time to rest, to recalibrate, to rejuvenate, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to know what those things are for you. What excites you? What lights you up? What makes you feel like you're doing something different, and an experience that gives you rest, creates joy, and gets you back to the place of being productive to bring it all. Because that's what happens is we get excited. We think we're going to launch something. And then what's next? Burnout. Oh, that idea didn't work. It's not that the idea didn't work. It's that you didn't have a process to work the idea, you know?
Yes, that's very true. Yes. And that's why I'm so happy and so grateful that I'm speaking with you today, because you know you have a very vast idea, you know, experience basically of building business, of building brands. And there are people out there, there are listeners out there who are looking forward to starting something like this, also like building their own brand and starting their own business. So for people out there who would love to do something like this, what's the best way to successfully build a business or build a brand from scratch?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is you have to have a point of view, right? And know that you are living a unique experience. Your story, your authentic story belongs to you only, right? Other people might understand what I'm saying through the elevation approach. Many, many people might understand that. But what happened to me was my unique story and my unique perspective. And I think we're also lucky to have that, right? I often say people make really dynamic individuals and bad copies, right? So we all need to lean into our authentic story. So I know most people might say, oh, what hasn't been done in beauty? If you think about the beauty brands we all buy from these days, it's a personal story that we're all connected to, you know, and like we're all deeply connected. And it's that person's journey or their story that makes us buy their lipstick or their cream or something over someone else's, right? So I would
Yes.
say to your listeners, you all have a unique perspective.
Mm,
What are you curious about?
mm,
What is a problem that keeps you up at night? I
yeah.
will tell you the problem that was starting to keep me up at night was hearing friends say, oh, how do you get to do all those things?
Mm,
How do you get, wow, I wish I could have an idea and bring it to fruition. And they just weren't able to do that, you know? And so I created this for them to say, I'm no different than you. I believe we all have within us the power to be creative. We have to have a process and we have to unlock it, right? The people who do
yes.
the best at, you look at someone like Miss Winfrey and look at what Oprah's done. She has harnessed her intention to create so much good in the world, but she is so incredibly intentional about where that energy flows, right?
Yes.
So that is like that process of who gets her time, attention, energy. She has nailed that, right? So she knows if I want to bring a Broadway show, whatever it is she wants to bring to fruition, it's going to happen. But it's through a process that keeps other stuff out that's
Yeah.
going to waste her time, right? We all
That's
need to
true.
do that in our families. However, like what's worth our time, what's a waste of our time.
Mm. That's very true. Yes. And I love what you said earlier. You said everyone has that power, that, that ability to create. And that's something that's very great because I know some people tell me, oh, yeah, there are a lot of people that are talented. Maybe I am not, as talented or I'm not as gifted or creative. There are people that, that are meant to be creative and they are doing their thing basically. So is there like an advice you give to people like that who are like caged into this mindset of like, I don't think I'm creative. I don't think I can do anything or start a business?
I would say every single one of us has a different set of skills, right? And the first thing you need to know, it's really important that you understand where your gifts are
Mm.
and what you don't do. And I think there's sometimes shame attached to not being able to do something. I wear proudly what I have no capacity to do because that means I can hire someone 10 times smarter than me and they're going to rock it and they're going to do what needs to happen in that area. I don't know where we as a society started to assign shame to not having a certain skill. Like my youngest brother is a composer and his gift with music and what he's able to do. I can never do that. And I'm so happy to know him and to know when I need to bring something like that to fruition that he's
Yeah.
there,
Yes.
and that he's going to do it. And so I would say lean into your special gift. Everyone has one. It's not the same. And I would also say sometimes if you walk into a room and you see a problem, it's important to know not everybody sees the problem you see. When I walk in, like if I'm in a retail store and I see like the way traffic is flowing in the store or the way
Yeah.
things are stocked, like I'm getting so annoyed. I realize the average person doesn't even see the friction that I'm
Yeah.
like, this would be such a better shopping experience if this were over here. The average person doesn't even see what I see, And so
True.
sometimes we're comparing ourselves to other people and it's like, we're not even all seeing and having the same experience at the same time. When I ever watch something musical with a person who is musical and they tell you,
Yes.
oh my gosh, that person didn't hit that note, I would never know. I'm just quietly entertained and they're like, oh,
True.
this is wrong. Or, because we all have different skills. And so I think the comparison has to go out, has to go out of the window,
Yes. Yes. That's very true. Oh, that's very, very true. So we all have, area that we are, good at, areas that we, notice easily than other people. Yes, that's true.
Exactly.
Yeah. Earlier you were talking about, selling products based on our, personal idea, personal story, like, the lipstick or the makeup, it always has a story at the back of it or behind it, basically. So is this the way we could sell our big ideas to the market, or are there other ways we could sell big ideas to companies, to organizations, or basically to the markets, to the society?
So what I would say is you don't want to fail in a big way, right? You don't want to go so big and you fail. You want to get better and better and better. And I've had friends who have explained this to me as their companies have grown, like great to fail when you have 5 clients, don't fail when you have 500, right? And so
True.
I think it's all about reiterating and getting better with a process and really owning that process and getting to know your ideal customer avatars. You've probably heard this saying ICA even
Yes.
better. And so I would say, how well do you know who that end user is? Well, it takes time to get to know what they want. That's why when people say, I have 5 different customer targets, that means you have 5 different budgets for social media, right? You have 5 different
Yeah.
messaging strategies. Why not get so great at one that is like clockwork for you, and then you can explore a second. So I
Mm.
think sometimes we're so ambitious,
Yeah.
just like I write for middle grade readers. I write adult books in areas where I have an experience. Like I wrote a marketing handbook. I'm working on a book on the elevation approach, but I don't write
Yes.
YA because young adult fiction is not my skill set. I really
Yeah.
honed a skill set to write for 7 to 12-year-olds. And so I think my feedback to your audience is be really, really focused, right? Sometimes we don't focus for lack of thinking we won't be successful, but success is in being focused.
Yeah, oh, that's true. So find your niche and just focus on that niche, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think
Exactly.
it's yes. And this leads me to my next question. You were talking about being realistic with your goals, basically, and your budget. You talked about budget. So can you teach us how we could set realistic budgets, realistic goals,
Mhm.
realistic roadmaps, basically, for our business?
Yes. So that all goes. So I think everything starts with there are different steps. And on my website, I have like lots of free worksheets that could help the audience with this. So the first is like a feasibility worksheet, right? How feasible is the business when you understand everything it's going to take to create that business?
Mm,
Then we move into who is the ideal customer avatar? What does that person look like? And thinking about where he or she or they might be.
mm.
And then from there, what does it take to reach them, right? If you are
Yes.
targeting retired people in their 60s who prefer to do many things in person, your marketing budget may look very different than if you're targeting teenagers who mostly live and exist online. Maybe you need a really good budget for TikTok, right? So
Yeah.
the more you understand who your end user is, the more you understand what marketing you need to do to reach them, because you've done such a deep dive into where they are and what they're looking for.
Yes, that's true. And I'm so happy that you work a lot with women, because I also believe in women empowerment, especially in the workplace and also for business. But there are a lot of women out there who are very scared. They have this fear of failing, and the fear of being disappointed, or the fear of just yeah, going insane, basically, for starting a business in a men saturated world, or yeah, the crazy world out there of business. So how would you advise people to let go of this fear of failing, or the fear of disappointment, or just being let down, basically?
So first of all, you will fail. I mean, it's just, you got to accept that and move
Mm,
on, and not let it define you. And a lot of times, failure is just a shift in direction.
mm,
And sometimes I find, for me as a founder, I have such a strong sense of direction. If you told me not to do something, I probably might just do it anyway. And so I almost sometimes need to fail into the right end result,
yes.
because I might not have stopped what I was doing.
Mm,
But for me, I ran a business for a really long time, that when I actually looked at the margins and how that business was being done and what I really wanted to do, I realized this isn't the best business. And I was able to pivot into something that is amazing business. And so I would say, don't be stuck on this idea of failure. Get really comfortable with the idea of a pivot, and get really comfortable with pivoting. I am in a season right now where I had to make a pivot that could be really uncomfortable in a piece of business, but I knew it was the right thing for the end customer. And instead of saying, "Oh my God, this could fail," I'm like pivoting before failure
yeah,
happens, right? And
that's
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 what we
true.
have to do, is like, sometimes we don't like, I think sometimes, especially America, we have this like American optimism of like, it's okay, I'm going to thrive. And it's like,
Mm,
sometimes it's just not good business. And we need to accept that and move on to what is good business,
yeah.
and do good business, and make sure, you know, that there's margin, that there's economics, that things make sense.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And I think this also links to what you said earlier about, identifying your right customer, knowing, where your niche, for example. And, once you've put all of that in place and you still fail, that means maybe you have to sit down, look at everything again, and maybe iterate or make some corrections, make some changes, or change directions, basically, like you said. Like failure sometimes leads us in a different direction of success. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yes. We have the Gen Z right now, and and we have to market successfully to them. So can you like share some tips on how to market to the Gen Z?
Oh gosh, I love Gen Z so much. I remember the first time I was starting to deep dive into who Gen Z is, and I realized pretty quickly, oh, Gen Z reminds me of teenagers from the 90s, and I grew up in the 90s, so I feel an affinity for and to them. And
Yeah.
what I love about them, so we're talking about the most educated generation in history.
Mm.
We're talking about the most financially savvy generation in history, right? So they were younger than millennials, not as impacted by, last financial crash in 2008, but watched and decided to be savvy with their money. I would also say that they're an incredibly creative generation,
Yeah.
but where they differ from others is they have figured out how to make money off of their creativity and really good money, right? So
Yes.
they're not just making TikToks, they're figuring out how to create businesses out of TikTok, right? They
That's
figured
true.
out, you look at the younger Kardashians and how quick they were to build wealth. You look at some of the members of this generation and it's like, wow, they were able to harness the creative power of the internet, not just as a tool for entertainment, right? There are many people who are entertained by technology. This is a generation that's figured out how to leverage technology for business. And so I'm really, and the other thing I would say that's different about this generation is when I look at millennials were very much anti-establishment, didn't trust the government, didn't trust these long existing systems, and knew that they had to build around them, right? So millennial driven companies like Airbnb, Uber, right? We want to completely change taxis,
Yes.
for better or worse. So we want to change how people work together. You look at Gen Z and they're saying, no, the government has a responsibility to the people, and we're going to go into these roles and we're going to change it and make these systems better. And so I think that's a real difference between millennials and Gen Z. Millennials are like, we were left with no jobs, right?
Yes.
We come out of college, the life we're supposed to have isn't there. We rebuilt everything from scratch. I think millennials also get a really bad rap, but I think what they had to do in that time and how they had to completely change systems to create jobs for themselves was incredible. But I think we're looking with Gen Z at a demographic and a generation that has had more stability. And based on that stability, they've created just incredible opportunity. And I really I can't wait till they're running this country, running the world. I think these are smart, passionate, understanding people who understand money. They understand all kinds of concepts that seem to be weighing down others, they understand gender fluidity, all of these things that are just it's just how it is. Right. And they can navigate all of that. And, I'm just excited to see how they lead and who they become.
Yes, but you think other people could compete with Gen Z? It's like they've saturated the market already with content creation, and maybe the baby boomers wants to do something, or the millennials wants to do something also in this space. Is it possible to work along with them, compete with them in this market space, or is there even an opportunity for other age group or age brackets?
I think there's always opportunity for collaboration. I think, what is unique right now, especially in America, is we have, for the first time in history, 5 generations working together.
Yeah.
So everything from, everyone from silent generation to boomers to Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, you've got everybody, working together. And so it's complicated, right? There are different ways of dealing with each other and talking. And here we have them all together.
Yeah.
Can anyone outmaneuver Gen Z? I think a younger generation is always going to be more adept at certain tools. I think look at the generation when TV came of age, and then look at the generation who had known TV their whole life, and look at the difference in the content they're creating. I think, for me, I'm 41, almost 42. I'm a Zennial. So I'm on the cusp of being a Gen X and millennial. That's when technology, I got my first cell phone at 21, my youngest brother at 13, right? Wow. So you see the difference of where things fit. And what's actually interesting is people my age were the ones in yoga class on their Blackberries, right? This was new. My brother's they know how to put their phones aside, go have a dinner and do what they need to do. Because this became oh my gosh, I have this device with me at all times. All of those things happened in my lifetime,
Yes.
That's not the case for younger people. They're we've had social forever, IG, whatever, and so,
yes.
I think it's important to know with these different tools, where do consumer groups fall and how long have they had these tools?
Yes, but especially in business also, when we are working with these different age groups, we have different mindsets, like you said, also like different background, different things that they were exposed to. And, it could be challenging sometimes, working together. So is there a way we could, find a common ground in the way we
Absolutely.
think, yeah, in the way we,
I think so, but I think that has to start with respect, right? And I think we have to respect a lot of times what I find, and we saw this a lot with millennials. I think there was such a massive generation that was
yeah,
creating such a huge shift, at least in America, really around the world, though, was a resistance to them. And then it was like a bad branding, like millennials are entitled. I never know where that came from. And I said to someone once, and it was, a person of age who could be the mother of a millennial. I said, well, if millennials are entitled, I said, do you have children? They said, yes. I said, so your entitled millennial is
mm,
someone else's problem then. Right. And then you saw her face change. I said, so you can't brand a generation of people entitled when you've created. So that means you've created their entitlement. Right. So
yes,
your child's just not working at your company. They're working at someone else's company being entitled, makes you think again about that. Right. Where in reality,
yes,
what was happening is the world was changing.
mm,
And what for the first time, younger people were coming in
mm,
more educated at the changes that were happening than older
yes,
people within corporations. And I think that millennials just got caught in this bet. And so then when you say, well, everybody wants a trophy, everybody wants a promotion, let's
yeah,
look at it as if you're a millennial. You know how to fix a problem a centuries old company has.
mhm.
Shouldn't you be compensated for that? Right. So everybody's right. You've got to listen to what everybody's saying. You don't
Yes.
know how to use Twitter. Your company needs Twitter. I know how. Why should I make a starting kid salary just because I'm younger? Right.
Mm,
I actually have the knowledge and expertise that's going to move the business forward. Why
yeah.
shouldn't I be paid for that? And I think that's a realistic request.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, that's very right. Yeah. So I'd love to make a very add switch to Elevation Tribe because I would love us to really talk about that before we end this conversation. I'd love you to
Yeah.
I'd love you to share a little bit more about this platform. I know it's for empowering women, it's for coaching women in business field, but can you share a little bit more about this and the services that you offer to women out there?
So a few years ago, I'm a Henry Crump Fellow at the Aspen Institute, and I was working on my venture project. And I decided that I really wanted to focus on a platform to help women of color launch, grow, and lead companies. And this was the time where platforms like Create and Cultivate and Girl Boss were becoming really popular. And
Yeah.
I felt and still feel that women of color have really unique nuances when it comes to launching, growing, and leading companies. And I wanted a place that talked about that and really helped with that. And so we were able to launch two very successful work journals, which included interviews with other women of color who had kind of done the ththing
Mm,
many members of the tribe were trying to do as a way to really kind of give that advice and help move forward. And so I love the elevation approach. I love the evolution of this brand and where it's going. There's so much more to come with elevation as a brand, and I'm
yeah.
super excited to share more. Lots in the works there. And early on in our conversation, I talked about working in a space that's all about contextual commerce and all about storytelling through product, and that is definitely coming to life with elevation. And so it's just an exciting place and space to be in. And I learned a lot about women of color in the business world through creating that platform, how many businesses and companies we are starting. I think you hear so often the statistic that, less than 2% of venture funding is going to women, even smaller percentage, much smaller to women of color. But if you also think about on the small business side, women of color own and operate almost 1 in 2 small businesses owned by women. So there we make up almost 50%
Yeah.
of, women in business. And so it's an exciting place to be. Small businesses are growing, they're emerging. It's good business. And
Yeah.
so, I'm just really happy to be speaking to that audience and speaking to those women.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And again, and apart from you having this Elevation Tribe, I will place the information in the show notes of this episode. You could read more about it on tinawells.com, where you have blogs
Absolutely.
there. You have a lot of articles also written there, and everything about the Elevation Tribe is also on this website. So I'll place the link there and encourage everyone to visit this website for further information and get across to Tina also. But I love to talk about your books also, which are also available on your website.
Yeah.
You have a total of 18 books that, that you're author of, best-selling author also. And I would just love to know why you directed your attention to middle grade fiction? What inspired you to go into this, this niche?
Yeah, so I feel like my view of the world and what was possible really came from reading books when I was younger. And I really just loved exciting adventures and, Babysitter's Club, Goosebumps, Fear Street. And a lot of times in those books, I didn't see people who looked like me. And so when I was given the opportunity to get into middle grade fiction, I realized that I thought it was so important for young people to see themselves in the characters and to see what was possible for them. So it really started from a place of, hey, I'm as someone who started as a teenage entrepreneur. I had to see that possibility somewhere, and it came through culture and through media. And I wanted to provide that to other people. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's creative. I love doing creative things. It's an audience I absolutely love. And so I have 4 series now. My 4th series will debut this fall. So I have been, Z-Files and Mackenzie Blue, it's the same character who's just gotten older. So it's a spinoff, but Honest June's totally different, but really getting to create like diverse characters and diverse groups and speaking to that audience is just so much fun. And so I'm expanding, and I'm definitely moving into content that speaks to women my age, my life set, and a bit older, but I will always love what I get to do in the middle grade world for sure.
Yes, they are so wonderful books, I would say. As once you visit tinawells.com, just go to my books section, then you see all the books. You see Honest June is there, the Z Files is there, and All That Glitters, book 1, book 2. Just awesome, wonderful books with wonderful and colorful illustration for everyone to read, basically. So I would encourage people to pick up the book, read it, and feel identified also in this book too. Yes. That's so beautiful.
Awesome.
So I would love to ask, how are you able to balance and harmonize everything that you do? You are a founder of Relevant Media, founder of Elevation Tribe, you are an author, you have your business, everything that you do, and you also have your own personal life, basically. How do you balance it all? How do you harmonize it all? Yeah.
I think that's going back to where we started with the elevation approach, right? I feel like work-life harmony is so important, and I want to make sure that I have that. It doesn't mean that, the idea of balance doesn't exist. I don't think. I think we all know that, but I think harmony can exist where everything works together. Yes. And that's what's most important for me, is just building a life where every piece of it feels like it works together. And so if I need to go visit my parents, go take care of my niece or my sister, do any of that there's harmony and how that all works together, and nothing feels like it's working against another part of my life. And that is what I think the elevation approach is all about. It's about creating work-life harmony for you, and just building the life that you want.
Yes. As a closing remark, I'd just love to know, what is the greatest advice you have ever had so far?
Oh gosh, I guess I would say at this stage in my life, it's my mom's advice, who told me, my mom said that I can have anything I want in life, but she doesn't suggest I have everything at the same time. So I think that's probably been the best advice I've been given.
Yeah, that's a wonderful and a great advice. Thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate everything that you're able to teach me. I'm going to place all of your information in the show note of this episode. So anyone who's interested in connecting with you or trying to contact you could do that through your website, I believe.
Yep, tinawells.com. Yep.
tinawells.com. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for everything you were able to teach me. I really appreciate this. It was so awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah.